Hi, I'm Brian Nealon, Group President at Dish. Thank you for your patience as we work with Nexstar to resolve this channel disruption. I wanted to provide you an update and answer specific questions that we are receiving from customers. I appreciate your candor, and I'm happy to be here to provide some insights and answers. The first question relates to, who really removed the channel? This customer states, Nexstar says it's Dish, and Dish says it's Nexstar. And again, the customer ends up being the loser. And we have received similar comments like this. I want to let you know, we did everything possible to keep the channels up while we continued to negotiate. Our team reached out twice on the day of the removal, and Nexstar ignored our offer to extend the contract. Now, in order to broadcast any channel, a contract needs to be in effect. If the contract expires, we are required to stop broadcasting. If we had continued to broadcast without a contract, we would be breaking the law and subject to fines. This is why the offer to extend was so important, but ultimately ignored by Nexstar. The second comment we have seen is, both Dish and Nexstar are saying they offered a fair deal. It's hard to tell who is right. I get it. A fair deal is something that is vague. I'd like to start out with some background details. In the 1950s, the government granted broadcasters, like Nexstar, the right to broadcast for free in exchange for delivering their programming for free to the public. Even today, Nexstar provides their channels for free to the public with an over-the-air antenna. The broadcasters made most of their money from selling advertising. Think commercials. Over the years, Dish and other satellite and cable companies partnered with the broadcasters to provide their signal to customers that couldn't get it with an over-the-air antenna. Dish didn't charge customers for local channels, and the broadcasters didn't charge Dish for the right to retransmit their signals to the public. In the early 2000s, broadcasters, like Nexstar, figured out a new way to make more money by charging cable and satellite companies to deliver their free signal to the public. Initially, cable and satellite companies refused to pay for these free channels, and as a result, the broadcasters removed their channels. This was the start of what we are dealing with today. Customers lost their local channels, got upset, and threatened to disconnect from their cable or satellite company. Consequently, companies like Dish were forced to start paying for these channels in order to provide them. Ultimately, this caused you to pay for them on your bill. This has been the cycle for the past 15 years. Broadcasters use the threat or the removal of channels as a way to gain additional revenue. This revenue for broadcasters was a few $1 million in 2006 and has grown to almost $13 billion today. $13 billion. In just the past 6 years, it has grown from $6 billion to $13 billion. That's your money, paid for by customers like you. Now, $13 billion, that is a huge number. But let me put it into a little bit of perspective. $13 billion is enough money to give every man, woman, and child in the United States about 10 gallons of milk. Or, cash, about $40. The annual inflation rate in the United States, it's about 1.2% for the 12 months ended October of 2020. The fees broadcasters received in 2020 increased by 8% over what they received in 2019. Why is it that the broadcasters, like Nexstar, receive 8%, almost 7 times the recent annual rate of inflation? What is unbelievable is that something that is supposed to be free to the public has ballooned to the public now paying over $13 billion a year for. So for a fair deal, we understand that what has happened in the past has set the standard for what we pay today. But enough. We're happy to pay Nexstar the cost of U.S. inflation over the last 4 years. But Nexstar's fair deal? They're demanding we pay nearly $1 billion, about 10 times the rate of inflation. There is no end in sight if we don't stop enabling broadcasters like Nexstar. A comment I saw posted on Facebook by Nexstar when the channels were removed stated, "The information Dish is providing you with is just not accurate. The channels are free and also through other streaming devices. We do not drop programming. Dish chose to do this to their subscribers, in which you end up not being able to enjoy your channels. Thanks again, and we hope to see this resolved quickly as possible." Now, it is interesting that they publicly state their channels were free, but they're asking Dish customers for $1 billion. Sort of confusing on what their idea of a fair deal may be. In addition, we know these channels have programming that many of our customers enjoy. But the reality is, the ratings for these channels has dropped by 25% over the past 5 years. Shouldn't you be paying less if you're viewing these channels less? Now, this is our side to the story, and there is obviously always another side of the story. What we do know from Nexstar's website is their fair deal is based upon the importance and value of our programming that we bring to our viewers. And I ask you, against a backdrop of a 25% ratings decline? Here's another one. Customers are commenting on going to a competitor. This customer states, "Well, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. If you can afford to lose all these customers, your profit margins must be astronomical. Calling DirecTV now." This is exactly what Nexstar wants you to do, and their plan is starting to work. With this action, customers are opening up their wallets to Nexstar. Please don't be fooled and don't be used. This has been their game since the early 2000s, to get companies like Dish to cave and ultimately increase your rates. Think about it. Nexstar started messaging on their channels on Thanksgiving morning at 10 a.m. in every time zone. Why do you think they did this? Do you think their corporate offices were working on Thanksgiving Day? Probably not. This was a premeditated move to deliver the greatest punch while you were starting to watch the parades or football games. They had it all planned. Check out their station websites. Front and center, they are further agitating you by telling you that you will miss your NFL games and other programming. Take a minute and think, why are they doing this? Yes, they want to upset you, to put pressure on Dish to pay the $1 billion they want. And they've been doing this for 15 years. Another comment I want to address is, I'm hearing that Nexstar is telling our customers that we regularly take down stations. Nexstar is correct that we have contract negotiations on a regular basis. In fact, on average, we have one contract up every 2 days. And this year, we have successfully negotiated more than 180 contracts without any issues. Nexstar, on the other hand, does this with other satellite and cable companies, so that if you do switch, sooner or later, they will do the same thing to them. The stations that comprise Nexstar today have blacked out their channels 5 times in the last 5 years across cable and satellite. And as recently as last year, they removed their channels from DirecTV. This is what AT&T, the owner of DirecTV, said at the time. Nexstar is demanding the largest increase that AT&T has ever seen from any content provider. This sounds familiar to us, because it is exactly what we are seeing with their outrageous ask of nearly $1 billion in fees. And to be fair, Nexstar isn't the only programmer playing this game. Another large broadcaster, like Nexstar, just removed their channels from DirecTV customers on the 1st of December. Switching or threatening to switch isn't the answer and just makes the problem worse. Another customer comment I'd like to address is, I am tired of 2 massive, greedy companies putting me in the middle. I have been proud to work for Dish for over 28 years, and it pains me for our loyal customers to think of us this way. We started as a small business in the early 1980s and grew into what you know today as Dish, by providing the best value, service, and technology, and treating our customers fairly and honestly. I am proud to say we are still led by our founders and many of the folks that built Dish. We value hard work and strong ethics, and doing what is right for our customers. Over the past few years, we have created a separate package for local channels. We are the only cable or satellite company that allows customers to remove their local channels from their subscription, saving money each month if they can receive the channels through an alternative means, such as an off-air antenna. We do this in order to provide choice and flexibility to you, our customers. In fact, Dish loses money when you buy our local channels package that includes programming from broadcasters like Nexstar. And Nexstar? Nexstar makes billions from selling what was supposed to be free. I'll let you judge who's greedy. I get it. This is only our side of the story, and we encourage you to reach out to Nexstar to understand their position. We have made it convenient for you to email or call Nexstar with information on dishpromise.com. Many customers have reported that when they call Nexstar, they automatically route their calls back to Dish without ever speaking to them. This makes you wonder if they have anything to say or if they even care to talk with you. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to listen and understand a bit more about this situation. And I also want to thank you for being a Dish customer. We will be in touch with any updates.